Milan, 1995. A Gucci show that shouldn't have worked. The house is nearly bankrupt, written off by half the industry as a relic trading on a name nobody respects anymore. Then the lights come up, and a single model walks out in a barely there dress cut low enough to make the front row visibly shift in their seats. By the next morning, that image is on every fashion desk in Europe, and the man who designed it, a Texan nobody in Milan had taken seriously 18 months earlier, has just saved one of the most storied houses in fashion with nothing but sex, tailoring, and nerve. That man is Tom Ford. And this isn't a story about a dress. It's about the 5 women who taught him that seduction, done right, is the most powerful tool in fashion. More powerful than money, more powerful than heritage, more powerful than anything else in the room. I've spent 2 decades writing about the people who reshape entire fashion houses through sheer force of vision. And Tom Ford belongs on a very short list of designers who didn't just follow an era, he built one. Where most of his peers spent the 90s chasing minimalism, stripping everything down, Ford went the other direction entirely. He believed clothing should announce desire, not disguise it. That confidence isn't modest, it's magnetic. And the women who embodied that philosophy best are the ones who shaped how he saw seduction for the rest of his career. Not the most photographed women of his era, not necessarily the most famous. The ones who understood, instinctively, that seduction isn't about revealing everything. It's about commanding a room the moment you walk into it. 5 women. Let's start with the one who became the literal image of his entire philosophy. Number 1, Amber Valletta. If you've ever seen the image that defines Tom Ford's Gucci era, the low-slung trousers, the exposed hip bone, the G-string logo waistband that became one of the most talked about advertisements of the decade, that's Amber Valletta. It ran everywhere. Magazines refused to print it in some markets. And it did exactly what Ford intended. It made Gucci impossible to ignore. What made Valletta different from other models of that period wasn't just that she photographed well in provocative clothing. Plenty of models could do that. It was the specific quality Ford has described looking for throughout his career, a kind of unbothered confidence that read as genuine rather than performed. She didn't look like she was posing for the camera. She looked like the camera happened to catch her. Ford has talked about that distinction as the entire foundation of what made Gucci's advertising different from everyone else's in the 90s. Other brands were selling clothes. He was selling a version of confidence so complete it barely needed the clothes at all. Valletta was the first person who fully embodied that idea on camera, and in doing so, she helped define an aesthetic the entire industry spent the rest of the decade trying to copy. Number 2, Charlize Theron. Years later, when Ford launched his own fragrance house, he needed a face for what would become one of his signature scents, Black Orchid, a perfume built entirely around the idea of dark, unapologetic sensuality. He chose Charlize Theron, and the campaign that followed became one of the most recognizable beauty advertisements of the era, largely because of a single quality Ford has pointed to specifically: Theron's total lack of self-consciousness in front of a camera. That's rarer than people assume, even among famous, photographed women. Most performers, even the most confident ones, carry some trace of awareness that they're being watched, being judged. Ford has described Theron as one of the few people he's worked with who genuinely seems to forget the camera exists entirely, which paradoxically makes the resulting images more seductive, not less, because nothing about them feels calculated for effect. Their collaboration extended well beyond that one campaign, continuing across multiple projects over the years, built on that same foundation. An actress willing to commit fully to an image rather than hedging it with visible self-awareness. Number 3, Julianne Moore. In 2009, Ford made the leap most designers never attempt. He stepped behind the camera as a director for his debut film, A Single Man. Julianne Moore played a supporting role that became one of the most quietly devastating performances in the film, and Ford has spoken about her specifically as someone who understood something crucial about the kind of seduction he was interested in as a filmmaker. Not just as a designer. It wasn't about desirability in the conventional sense at all. It was about a woman fully inhabiting her own contradictions. Glamour layered over genuine loneliness, performance layered over real vulnerability, without ever explaining or softening either one for the audience's comfort. That's a much harder note to hit than simple physical seduction, and Ford has credited Moore with helping him understand, as a first-time director, that the most compelling on-screen presence isn't the character trying hardest to be desired. It's the one who stops performing entirely and lets the camera catch what's actually there underneath. Number 4, Gwyneth Paltrow. Here's a moment worth pausing on, because it's one of the clearest examples of Ford's specific genius for reading a room before anyone else does. The 1996 VMAs. Gwyneth Paltrow arrives in a deep purple velvet Gucci suit, no shirt underneath, cut precisely enough to be unmistakably provocative, while somehow still reading as tailored, controlled, deliberate rather than exposed. It became one of the most talked about looks of the entire decade, instantly, and it did something specific for Ford's reputation that few single garments managed to do. It proved his aesthetic could translate off the runway and onto an ordinary red carpet, worn by someone who wasn't a professional model, and still land with the same impact. Ford has talked about that suit specifically as proof of a theory he'd been building his entire career around: that the most seductive garment in the room is rarely the one showing the most skin. It's the one that makes a room recalibrate what confidence is supposed to look like. Paltrow wearing tailoring instead of a traditional gown, at an event built entirely around traditional glamour, did exactly that. Number 5. Padma Lakshmi. Here's something worth correcting, because there's a version of this story that gets flattened into gossip whenever it comes up, and it misses what actually made the relationship significant to Ford's career. He and Padma Lakshmi were engaged for several years during a formative stretch of his life, and by his own account, she wasn't simply a partner adjacent to his work. She was someone whose intelligence and independence genuinely shaped how he thought about the women he was designing for. The easy version of this story treats it as just another bold-faced name romance. The real version is that Ford has specifically credited her with pushing back against any tendency in his design work to treat seduction as something passive, something happening to a woman rather than something she was actively, intelligently choosing. Lakshmi, a writer and eventual television host in her own right, brought a level of pointed conversation to their years together that Ford has said sharpened his instincts considerably, moving his idea of seduction away from spectacle for its own sake and towards something with more genuine agency behind it. So there they are: Amber Valletta, who became the literal image of an entire design philosophy; Charlize Theron, whose total comfort in front of a lens made unguarded seduction look effortless; Julianne Moore, who taught a first-time director that vulnerability reads louder than performance; Gwyneth Paltrow, who proved tailoring alone could outseduce an entire room built for traditional glamour; and Padma Lakshmi, whose intelligence pushed Ford's whole philosophy towards something with real agency behind it, not just spectacle. What connects all 5 isn't beauty in the conventional sense. Ford has worked with countless conventionally beautiful women who never made this kind of impact on his thinking. What connects them is a specific, harder-to-manufacture quality: total commitment to being seen exactly as they are, without apology, without hedging. Tom Ford built an entire design philosophy, and eventually an entire personal brand, on the belief that confidence itself is the most seductive thing a person can wear. He didn't invent that idea from nothing. He built it, piece by piece, watching 5 women who already understood it instinctively, long before he ever put it into words. If you made it this far, tell me in the comments which of these 5 moments defined the era for you, or who else belongs on a list like this. I read everyone. And next time, we're heading somewhere entirely different, into the archive of a designer who built her entire empire on the exact opposite instinct, hiding nothing, but revealing everything on her own terms.